Hello and welcome to another episode of Getting into Git Oxide, and welcome Sydney.
Hello.
So for those who have been watching yesterday, nothing has changed since except for a few minor adjustments to make CI/CD happy, which runs on my fork. Was quite a journey, but that's unrelated to what we actually tried to do, fortunately. So we can jump right ahead and use this frame we did yesterday to actually implement something. Something that is currently implemented in Git in Git 2. And that can basically be anything.
I guess first thing would be to check what we actually have to implement, right? So kind of see, maybe pick out one of those variables and probably then just work our way towards them.
Let's do that. I'm running a test with just Git Oxide activated as a feature. So now basically we only see variables that are Git Oxide related. So what you see here is that this one at entry already has an effect because we just set that SHA field to be done. And this is how we could do it, right? We just eyeball it and eventually we re-enable the one test that we have once we have enough so that this can pass. And we could even check what that should be. Oh yeah, there's really just there's two regexes only, but no, wait, it's a regex set of some sort, huh? Yeah, it's more like a regex set. That's interesting. And then it joins, it's checking multiple lines. So lines are supposed to be output in a particular order too. And then it's first the branch. And that's vergen git branch. So I guess we keep that order. We could also look at the code of Git 2, but I think that's important. So let's just go from the top to the bottom. Fortunately, difficulty also increases from top to bottom because this vergen git semver, that's going to be a bit more involved, I think. Because, maybe not. Because here the hash, yeah, don't you see the hash? I totally see it. It's like you can see the metrics, or just by seeing those numbers. It's a bit like that. But that should probably be a hash here. And it doesn't care about the length of the hash. So we can just dodge this abbreviated hash thingy, which Git2 does for now. And just have a long hash. And that probably makes it a bit easier to implement this at first. So let's talk about this more. I might be kind of digressing. We talk about this more once we get there because I think this is quite involved despite the seeming simplicity. And something I'd like to do is also to run Git itself or Git2 itself so that we have a sample and see how that should look like. And then we can probably more easily do that. And if you have any ideas, just shoot. Just Git2, default features, and then Git as a feature. And that should give us that output. And it does. It's only the good things. Git branch master. All right.
Cool. So this is what we're looking at as our goal, essentially. This is what needs to come out.
So once we run test Git Oxide, we would like to see... Oh, that's actually the wrong one. Or is it the wrong one? What? Yeah, it's the wrong one because I just changed this. I wanted to duplicate that because we want to be running just Git oxide. Like that. And then we only see what we actually want to see, and it's less noisy. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. And then, as every good student, we learn from what's there. Some teachers call that cheating. I call it, reducing the reducing the amount of work to the lowest possible amount. Just to see how this is done, because I guess this config thing can be used to, or has to be used to see if something like this is actually required. So add git branch. So if this is turned on, if the config says, give me the branch, then you can add the branch name. Okay, so of course I don't write that myself. I just copy paste. And I think this should be so simple. There is probably no need for an extra function there. So that's quite practical about having an actual type in enum that looks like this. Git branch. I could even say, yeah, let's run this. And now, yeah, we just try to get master there, like this, I guess. That works. Yeah, let me also, I don't know. Look, it's some other test that outputs this. I don't know which one it is. It's probably just std out. Which test is doing that? Which test uses std out? I'm looking for, I was looking for some indication of what is a test here, but I don't know. Are they using right line? Yeah. Okay, whatever. Let's just run all the tests, not taking too long. 3 seconds, 4 seconds. It's, I guess, fine to see what happens. That's our increment. That's our time now that we have to wait. Getting this to 1 second would be nicer.
Dev loop.
Yeah, dev loop. That's right. That was the word I was desperately looking for. Dev loop. Somehow I feel, maybe I can run. Let's see. Let's narrow it down like this. That runs something. I just want to, maybe I see it here. If I just look at it, stare at it long enough, maybe it kind of jumps at me.
It's all kind.
Oh, all kind, sorry.
Yeah, there was a one just above git all kind, yeah.
Git all kind. Yeah, it's probably something unrelated to Git, because that we see Git is just coincidence. It just prints everything to std out somewhere. Where are these tests anyway? So eprint, println, vergen, gan. This is tests. Std out. It's std out buffer. Std out buffer I'm actually not interested in. IO. Just IO write. So maybe somebody uses write line as part of a test. Yeah, I don't find it. Okay, whatever. Let's just implement this now. And live with having slightly longer cycle times here. Just git oxide. Okay, so now, what do we need?
I guess, this is the first question now, really, because, I mean, getting the branch name, we already did last time for the stats program, right? But we said that we wanted to build some more abstracted API for that. At the moment, we don't have it. So what's the how do we handle this now? Do we just build it in a way that works at the moment, or do we implement something new for the current Git repository and then use that.
Yeah, my tendency is, in a bit, I learned a lot from the stats program we did earlier, where we would just write it out right there and then see how that feels. And if it doesn't look right, or after comparing to Git 2, which we should do right now, is inferior, then in the next step, we improve the API.
Okay.
Because at some point you have to write it. There's no way around it. It's more like, how do you make it nicer then?
Sure.
And might as well do that here. And then, you know, just red-green refactor kind of thing should be easy enough. Oh, these red squiggly lines. Maybe I just turn that linter off and don't forget to turn it back on. I don't know. Okay. I'm still a bit afraid to forget that. So now we need a handle to have that kind of high-level API. I guess that's the first thing people would not do, because it's not obvious. If you come from Git 2, let's say. Git 2 is repo. Let's see what Git 2 is. Add branch name. Okay. That's interesting. So we want to do the same thing, I guess. Check if it's detached. And otherwise we do something like that. But Git, but there's always the repository is top level thing, which we cannot mimic and don't want to mimic. But maybe we can fake it so that it looks like it's happening, but it's not really. Because that's what people expect, right? The benefit of having handles per thread is exactly, is incredible. Like this one here uses synchronization and gets slow if multiple threads handle it. And this is exactly what Gitoxide is not doing. This is why the handle abstraction needs to be there. But it's kind of an extra step that you have to learn. And I don't know about that. It's okay to me, but I'm also blind, right? But we can't really be, I think it's important to kind of watch this and see if people would get that or not, and if there's technical ways to work around that. Just as a thought, right? I don't say to do that now at all. But okay, this is the goal.
Sure.
Detached head. And then how's that happening? Give me all local branches and ignore errors. And if it's the head, whoa, okay, that's interesting. If it's the head, then get the name and set it. So that's what this code does. We can probably do better than that with the current abstractions.
Could we do it the other way around? Essentially just, I mean, get the head and then check if it's a local branch?
Yeah.
Or if that's quicker?
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, definitely. Let's just do it in Gitoxide and see what happens. Because for this, we want, what's going on? Ah, it's unhappy because of this. Let's do it like that for now. It does not have completion for me. What? IntelliJ, this is really what you have to do, or else. Okay, let's try to compile this. What's going on here? I'm always confused. Is this? It's actually compiling, you know? Or is it? No, I think it wasn't compiling because I didn't use the right target. So now, okay, that's why maybe cannot be applied to Git repository. Oh yeah, all right. This is why. It's all my bad. There isn't actually an error here. And now it works. Great. Thank you. And that's how we get the head. That's what we're interested in. And that's result. So how does error handling work? How does vergen do error handling?
They use the anyhow, right?
Yes, but is it okay to crash, so to say, or should we rather think, like, because now we stop whatever is happening there. Maybe vergen wants to give as much as possible and then it crashes later. Every environment variable that is expected by the program but is not set will then trigger a compile time error because this env thing doesn't work, right? So I'd say we we should abort early when it happens, because that is much easier to debug. I really have to set up some rules, so like maybe no vacuuming during recordings, maybe. Yeah, look, so question mark is used here as well. There's nothing done to avoid that. Good. So hard errors can stay hard errors. Okay, now we have a head here. And the head, that's actually essentially this file on disk. This is a representation of what's here. And this is either some reference, which is basically the name we're looking for, or it's a detached head, or it's an unborn head. But even if it's unborn, we would still be able to see the reference. So I think we wouldn't care about that. It's really just detached or not. So let's see how that is reflected here. Kind. Let's see. Oh, look. So I can just match on this one. And I have a reference here that is resolved, which has a name, or we have the full name. And look, there's even a referent name here. So it kind of already helps me with that. And this also tells me if it's detached or not. Reference name that I could match on it. Oh. So some name. Or that's the one we know. I think it's detached head. Something. Does it make sense? You seem quiet.
Makes sense, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the detached head part we already have, and now it's just a question how to get a name out of this, or turn this into a string. So this interface here, it does want a string, right? And that's always a troublesome issue for us, because we have bytes only. And these are not UTF-8 encoded, not necessarily, so we just have to convert this in the same way. We can transform it into a path. That won't help much, but from that we can definitely get a string, lossily, for instance. And that gives us a branch name we should be able to use right here. Yeah. I tend to do this with these options somehow, but of course, like, this is more explicit, and because it's already in code, I wouldn't change the style, so to say. Which probably also tells me that instead of doing this, I should do this. And that's fair, you know.
Just more explicit, yeah. Although into is easier.
Yes. It's more like, yeah, try it out, find your way, and maybe that's really, I also like this more. This toString reads, you read what is important, right where it is important, even though here it gets lost a bit. Can I do this? Maybe I can. Okay, so in theory that does something. Oh, yeah, see, that worked. Cool. Okay, so we still do want just the name. And now we might get into territory where maybe it's interesting to think about this API. Like,
just one more question before, because we're just mapping from the match statement, the sum name, we're just pushing that into the entry. Is that always going to be a branch? Like after the referent name, this is always going to be the thing that we're looking for, essentially. So there's only those two options, detached or one of the local branches.
Yes. Yes, because none would be detached and there is no name. Otherwise, there is a name that is either pointing to an actual reference that exists or a not yet existing reference, which is the unborn, right after initialization case. So yes, it's literally, it can't go wrong because it's part of the type system and it's fully represented. And that's cool. That's pretty cool. So that I like. Like compared to the Git2 code that was written, I think it's impossible to get wrong. But you have to deal with it. And there's a bunch of functions that boil this down into an option. So detached is, there is no name, so yes, it's an option then. But you can also get, match on the kind, and then you can get the actual object IDs that it's detached to, so to say. So you can get to all the data that you want, and this is just a shortcut here. Referent name versus referent path. It's maybe a bit of confusion there, also from myself. Like, is it a path or is it a name? Because name for me would be just a name, main, right? Or master in this case. And I wouldn't expect a partial path there. And inside of Git Oxide, it always calls that with name, and I think Git also calls this name. Like, I might have inherited this from Git itself and just do that, because kind of the idea of it, it's this is not unique, but this is the identification. Yeah. So maybe better names can be found, so that name is probably what most people expect, just master. And there should probably be an easy way to get to that, because right now, I don't think there is. We can check, maybe reference has some way of getting the name easily, but there's not always a reference. So full name is really what we have in both cases. Because we can say, yeah, referent name gives us the full name right here. And ideally that full name would be able to give us just the name portion of what we are interested in. Or base name, or I don't know, something.
Some other word.
Yeah, because now we have to do that ourselves. So that's definitely a to-do. Because now what do we do? I mean, we have a path, that's nice. Now we can say file name. And now that's an option. And we always expect something to be there. Even head alone has a file name, which is head. And then this gives us an OS string, which in turn should have toString lossy as well. Maybe toString lossy is the thing that says if there is some encoding that I don't understand, I will just replace it with some, or replace it with an unknown character. Or I don't know, something like that. It does. So it will always work. That's the point. And we get to write something here. Okay, does this work? It compiles. And it's master. Cool. So that does work neatly. And that's the code. And actually, now that I think about it, that's not too bad. Like, saying that my name should be a path and then a file name, I mean, this is just a normal path API. And I think this always works even on Windows.
But I don't remember. I mean, I remember you telling me about that, how Git Oxide handles strings, that it's essentially only like the B string, right? But is that something that we expose to the users? Like, would a normal user, wouldn't he expect a string right there in name instead of bytes?
Yeah, but you can't do it because then you degenerate. You need bytes.
Yeah.
And this is even a type that hides, that it's a new type, because that's a validated ref name that is guaranteed to be correct. And internally, it's just a bunch of bytes that are properly formatted, so to say. And from there, we can work. And we could consider instead of this, having a utility function that returns a new B string that is really just the file name. So we could basically do this, but then this would have to be a byte string as well. And then we would probably have something like that. This I can imagine as a valid improvement, because that's probably what people usually want.
That would be easier, true.
So maybe we can do that next. So, because it's also interesting, it's a simple change, because we basically just put this into some method. And it also forces us to change our local setup a little bit, because now we somehow have to make cargo use local code, which currently we don't do. It pulls code from, where does it pull it from? Git repository comes from, actually from Git itself. So we use the latest one, the latest version that I push. I also increased the, oh, that's another thing. The MSRV, the minimal supported Rust version of vergen, is an older one, and GitOxide didn't actually compile on that version. So I had to make a bunch of fixes to a bunch of crate. I had to change the stability requirements of Git repository, GitOxide and Git repository to consider MSRV and to set it to the lowest common denominator. I also added a test, a new CI step in GitOxide that validates with the older version of Rust, like vergen does. So all this has happened also in the meantime, just so that we can now work and don't have to deal with this stuff totally failing on CI all the time. But yeah, so that's all pretty cool, but this doesn't help us. I don't want to push a change. It is something we could do, right? We could push a change to main, and then we hope that it works. But ideally, we can test locally with the local version here and have a local override. And that's what I'm talking about. But first let's get back to this and make a commit. Implement git branch display. Yeah, I guess.
What do they call it? Entry?
Git branch entry. Yeah. Vergen key branch. Implement branch key, huh? Entry key, okay, I like this. I think that's pretty much to the point. Okay. Yeah, and now for the simplification. So first of all, I'd like to use a local version. So I can say patch crates IO. And now choose Git repository. I don't know if I have to specify version. But I can now say path is my local path on disk. And you see how that is local to my machine, and thus should probably not be pushed or committed for that matter.
Relative paths don't work here.
They might, I think they do, but even if they do, it's still specific to my machine. Kind of. Maybe it's more compatible, you can make it work, but this shouldn't be pushed, this shouldn't be committed. And I don't know of a way to apply this kind of outside of the cargo toml file. Let's see. Quick lookup.
You could have a script essentially that runs on, I don't know, when you pull it, that inserts it in there, right?
Yeah.
Complicated, yeah, but
you can have a lot of things to make stuff work. You can make it work. But cargo is usually pretty cool. So usually it makes it easy to do the typical things that you want to do. Yeah, here they offer up the local path as well. But it's still part of that particular TOML file. And I don't know, I don't think you can specify this using configuration, for example. There are cargo config files that are outside of your repository usually, where you can affect a bunch of stuff.
What about, I don't know, can you have something like template strings to insert environment variables and stuff like that?
I'm not gonna, okay, sorry. I was so antagonistic. I'm not gonna rewrite that file with tools. Does it pick up environment variables if you put them here? No, it doesn't. There's no templating system that is kind of on the fly. It's fully deterministic, this file. It's kind of a stupid file, but I think that's good. You can amend it. You can make things happen. Let's try that. Maybe it just works. Yeah, first let's see if that works, if that would work, right? Let's see. Can I build that? Patch location, Git oxide does not appear to contain any packages named Git repository. Okay. What about now? That actually builds and runs and works. So now use the local version.
How do you know?
Good question. So now you see the path that it uses. It doesn't use the URL anymore, but it uses the path. So that works. Now what about taking this out and putting it into... Oh no, wait, that's the wrong directory. Into one of these. So in theory, you can put additional configuration here that is outside of your repository, that is local for you. So if I now would remove this, it might still work if it picks that up. But it doesn't. Okay. So now it's the GitHub repository again. So yeah, by the looks of it, so some things cargo picks up from that file, certain things, but not everything. So,
but I guess if you just keep it to the absolute path, then if someone else clones it, I'm guessing it'll throw a big error. Yes. So at least it's very explicit then that you have to change something.
Yes, it will definitely not work for anybody else. It's definitely just for local testing, but I'm a bit surprised you can't just silently override this. And probably I'm missing something. Cargo configuration, hierarchical structure. So here, alias, build, doc, env, path, same keys as for patch. Oh, so look. Here, this is what I was doing, cargo config toml. And you can actually put that there. Patch registry. And that's what that is, right? Patch. But it did not work. Yeah. It did not work for me just now, right? Strange. Source, rendered sources. So they have that in mind already, and maybe it's not working at all. Maybe it is.
Maybe it needs a value to override. Like if it's not present in the cargo toml, then it won't pick it up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Usually it's additive and just overrides it. Because credentials also you don't want to put anywhere, right? So this works the same. But, well, we tried. Good enough for now. Okay, cool. So now, as a last thing for today, I suppose, we can see that we make the API a bit nicer by supporting something like file name directly. Name, file name, yeah. We can do some proper bike shedding later, I suppose. But that's about it. And then it's a bit easier. Full name ref. Okay. So that's interesting. When I go to the source, it should actually show me my local directory here, but it seems to only show me the file it downloaded from from crates.io. So I do have to probably open up another or Git oxide myself here, because otherwise you could just use it as if it was one. And use the same editor, but I think I have to use another editor now. And
because it kind of caches it somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it should be smart enough, IntelliJ should be smart enough to pick up the new location. It kind of does that, I think, but maybe now it didn't. And now we have to deal with all these windows, but it's okay. So quickly, where is that? It's in gitref lib. Then from there we can navigate. Git oxide hash gitref lib. And then somewhere here there is the full name ref. That's the one. And I think, yeah, there's the modules here where the actual implementation can be found. For certain utilities right now, there isn't much, I think. Full name ref. Yeah, so we have an owned version here, full name and full name ref. And full name already has a few utilities here, but nothing that I'd find interesting, just namespace related stuff. But at least here's an impl block that we can use to add something. Pub n file name. And that would then return a B string. That is our file name. Self to path. Oh no, wait. Like this, self to path. And now we just do the same thing. Added ref name. Oh, actually, wait, that is an OS string here. Oh. Yeah, OS strings, they are not B strings. Never will be. So now we can't just convert them to bytes and can then interpret that as a B string. So B strings are always just bytes, because OS string can be encoded differently on Windows, for instance, where it's UTF-16 and it just can't be seen as ASCII anymore. It's not. So that will not work. That's not portable. And converting things to a path here, it shows it's actually a cow. It's now possibly an owned path. So on Windows, this would be transformed into something else because it has to decode this UTF-16 and make it work. UTF-8 is assumed, and this is kind of dangerous, right? So not everything that Git would work with and that is valid in Git would be valid with this interface. And that's an implementation detail right now, quite fortunately, but it would never really work because of conversions that are, yeah, that just aren't supposed to be done, so to say. But it's a path, right? So yeah, I think there's also, now that I'm saying it, I mean, I think we have a similar comment somewhere else where it says the prefix filter for ref iteration. Remember, like we could say only find me stuff in ref's heads. Here, this one.
To give that its own type, essentially.
Yeah, to have an own path here. At least, I mean, this particular thing can probably be improved as well, but it's just that we don't claim it's a path. So we have a custom type that is kind of like a path, but will always be doing the right thing and doesn't have these conversion issues that you have right now, because it doesn't have to assume it's UTF-8. It just keeps seeing bytes there, which it is, and not more. And I think this is something I would write here as to do. Use custom path type instead, as this isn't really a path. See ref iteration with prefix for similar comment. Yeah. Okay. So that's the kind of issues you run into at the beginning, I guess. Things that are always a little dirty, and you just do them because, yeah, it's good enough for now. But ultimately, it's going to bite you. Especially with conversions and this kind of, you know, you shouldn't never assume any encoding. All right, so back to this. With the new version of that API, we could do that. With the new version, it would be a B string. And I'm thinking instead of going down this route, just say, we know it's going to be slashes. So we can split or rsplit n. Is it 1 or 2 here? Yeah, we can just try that, right? So rsplit n, that's a predicate, some function that probably gets a byte, and we say split at slash from the back. So our first thing that we see should be the file name. And that should be a byte slice, and we can transform that back into a B string. That's free, this conversion. It's really just a transmutation, as we just interpret the byte slice as a B string, binary string. Yeah, so that should work. And now with this change, does it build? That's the least thing I should probably do. It does not, because that is probably a borrowed one, because it tells us here. Oh, sorry, you don't see that here. Yeah, so here the hash, the ampersand. So let's see if that works now. Fair enough. See, I also have some lints. In production crates that are already, not production, but in crates that are released, everything should be documented. So, but while I'm writing these, I'm not having any lints that are in my way. Return the file name portion of a full name, for instance, main. If the full name was refs heads main. So that should probably be descriptive. Still compiling. Wow, okay. But it compiled and it ran, so the test popped up on another screen and it says it's good. We don't have a test for this yet. Let's see if we can actually quickly add one. if I can follow the structure here, because these small tabs, they're not necessarily directly tested for every little thing, but maybe they are. Full name. Okay, so prefix with name strip, and there is already some place where this is tested. So we can probably just snatch some code here. File name. And create a full name that is refsats main, and we assert that name, that file name, to ref. Ha! Haha! Yeah. So this is an owned one, right? And this can't give me a file name. So it's already kind of an extra step that seems unnatural. And one would think, can I just hide this somehow? You can duplicate the API, obviously. You can just re-implement it. But for now, that's how you do it. And that's good enough. So now we have a little test here. It doesn't need to be mutable. That is correct. Just a warning though, not the end of the world. And it failed. Are you kidding? But we never tested it, so I guess it's fair that it fails. It's actually good. So maybe this has to be 2. I think this is 2, right? So let's try that. It should kind of work. Just increment this number until it works. That's my way of dealing with this now. Okay, it already ran and it's green. Yeah, full name, file name. You can even go in and say mod ref. Or full name ref. Yeah, it's okay. I think it's good enough, file name. Okay, cool. So now we know it works. And it's local. So I should be able to just go to my vergen here and use that new function, which probably doesn't get picked up because IntelliJ doesn't know these local files yet for some reason. Oh, so maybe it is an actual issue here because IntelliJ should pick that up. I thought it can do that. And also when compiling, it doesn't actually pick it up. Here, so that's a full name ref. It's the right thing. We just added this. It's there. But it doesn't see it because it actually has the wrong, it didn't apply the patch, which is kind of weird because when here, look, it already tells you something. Patch was not used. Okay, it didn't pick it up. No, actually, I don't know why. I could only think of specifying this here. It worked once. I've seen it. What happened now? It resyncs. Still not found. Still the same message. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, is the local version the same as the latest on main?
Yeah. I thought. I mean. Oh. Oh, actually. I mean, it's also not Git repository that we changed. We changed the subcrate. We changed something that is picked up somewhere else. So actually what we want to overwrite is git ref. And maybe that's also not being picked up, but maybe it is. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't get it. We have seen that. Is this now... Am I making this up? It's the right... I mean, it's the right path, otherwise it would not be happy. But, okay, let's go up the history just to validate that we've seen that once working. Even though it always claimed that it's not picked up. It's interesting. I have it on video, right? So in theory, I should be able to prove that it was picked up, but I don't have it in this history either. So I don't know, was I imagining things? Was this our collective imagination? Okay, but this is clearly kind of a digression because we are theoretically done. It would work.
Should work.
And now just figuring out why the override doesn't work. And I've done that before, you know. I'm a bit surprised now that this issue comes up, and I'm also a bit surprised that I've seen this working and now it's not anymore. Yeah, well, that's probably for another day because I'm out of options here. It tells me what I'm supposed to do, but it's all the same. It wasn't used in the crate graph, but it should be used. Maybe one more thing that one could test is to just, I mean, since we kind of have a terrible hack here anyway, might as well just do it like this and just specify the path directly, and then it should definitely pick it up. So that's usually what you don't have to do with these patches. And Git repository should be the path. And now IntelliJ gets it too. And now we convert a B string into a string, which probably doesn't work because it might not be UTF-8 to string. Which apparently automatically, since this always works, ignores invalid characters, which is what we want. Okay. And now it works, it has the right output, and the API looks pretty neat. And there's one more thing you can do. Whenever you write a match on an option, ask yourself, does it have to be like this? And if you don't return or do any kind of special error handling, answer is no. So here, first transformation is a map. Yeah, let's call it name then. And then unwrap or else. And And that's that. That's what you would
then
have to know.
branch name itself is an option, isn't it?
It is an option here, but
On
we
the
always
address,
have
of course,
to
yeah.
we always have to get the detached head thing. That's why we, I think, need that. But otherwise, yeah, it can stay an option, huh? But then we might not have the name set. It's, you know, when it comes to correctness, I'd be thinking I'd rather not have this environment variable set than it be called detached head, which now to me looks like a normal name, even though it's not. You know, I think that's incorrect. But that's the way things are. And
not our decision to make.
Not our decision here. And would be a breaking change in any case. So that's definitely not to be fixed in 6.0 of vergen, if it's even needing a fix. I mean, just my opinion. So works great. So now this definitely only works with the very, very latest, greatest version that we didn't push yet. But I guess that can be left as an off-cam exercise for now. I'm pretty happy with that result, and I think that's definitely an improvement over the alternative, which we can close with. I think this is really, you know, this shows where Git Oxide can still shine, because I think due to the lack of certain methods that make you write such code, you wouldn't write such code. You can't. You have to deal with the type system, and this allows you to write idiomatic Rust code, which is matching on options or mapping on options, like we just did, right? And like traversing all branches and finding the head. This must have been written when Git 2 was very early or something, and there wasn't easier ways when there was no head method there, because also in Git 2 you can do this more easily, I think. So yeah, but an improvement. How many lines of improvements? We are at 22 lines for the whole function, and now this is 5 lines, so more than 4x better. I like it. Cool. And with this, I thank you for watching and everybody for participating, and thank you, Sid, for joining. Goodbye.
Thank you for having me. Goodbye.